Hey there, Leo. I'd like to do a financial tarot reading for the month of February here, if I can get these cards shuffled. So basically, for those of you who are dealing with looking for work, dealing with career or education, perhaps investments, contracts, negotiations, I'm going to see what your energy is in the month of February to see if there's a good kind of circumstance, maybe a particular dynamic shows up where you get some communication or a job response, things like that. Bearing in mind when I do this reading that this does not replace any financial or legal advice, contractual advice, no professional advice of any kind, in fact. But do we like to get into a good old, financial reading? Absolutely. So that is what we're going to do, and I'm going to do it using the Gustave Doré Tarot deck, which is a tarot deck that is based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, so the interpretations of this deck are going to be the same standard that you're probably used to. So if you're okay with having a little bit of fun for this, for entertainment purposes, let's get into it. Here's what I see. You know what, actually? Wow, Leo, come on now. The Sun card is sitting here. And I know a lot of people will talk about the Sun card as being connected to Leo. And if that's the format in a modern sense of how you interpret the Sun card, connecting it to an astrology, then you could say this is a Leo energy. But for me, I will say that historically speaking, the Sun card is one of the best omens of success. And especially for revelation. Revelation of like the kind of situations that occur when someone's looking for an answer. They're waiting on communication. If that's you and you've been waiting on communication, the Sun card in the reversal position doesn't change the power of this dynamic. Like in terms of a historical aspect of reading tarot, especially with the major arcana cards, which are these cards that are not associated to the swords, the wands, the cups, etc. The trump cards, you could call them. These cards just have one meaning. I mean, they've got an expandable version of a meaning, but it's not described as in the upright, in the reversal, right? The theme of the Sun is revelation. Even in the reversal position, you could think of it as the Sun is down, is setting, and then the Sun is eventually coming back up. It's like a cyclical celestial energy that has to do with revelation and a time coming where the path gets seen, the answers get seen for what it is that you're looking for. For those of you looking for employment, all of a sudden, this could be the month of February where your hard work starts to show up, like perhaps the places that you've been sending resumes towards, you get a call back. That's an example of this. And I'm saying that knowing that in a moment we're going to talk about the Ace of Swords, which is the card of triumph and victory. But before we get to that, again, let's talk about that path, that revelation. For some of you, instead of it being employment, maybe you are in a school situation and you are waiting for an apprenticeship or an internment, or not internment, sorry, internship, not internment. We're talking internship, something where all of a sudden a path opens up for you. The answer about something you submitted to starts to show itself. Now, because this was in the reversal, there could be a little bit of a time delay. So it could be likely that this occurs closer to the end of February. And I'm doing this reading for you here in the month of January. So we haven't even hit the month of February yet. We're getting a sneak peek early, right? But because it's in the reversal, again, think of it like the Sun goes down and then eventually the Sun comes up to rise up, right? So it takes a little bit of time because the Sun is a cycle card. It has to do with the cycles of the heaven. Then we can insinuate there's a period of time it takes to get to that revelation. Not a long one, though. Again, the Sun's cycle is only the 24-hour cycle of the day. So it is a fairly quick revelation. We're not talking about like the planets Pluto and Neptune or something like that cyclically, right? Very lengthy cycles. In this case, it is relatively quick. For those of you who are trying to figure out perhaps contractual things, negotiations like the sale of a house or court contracts or perhaps bills, bills that you're dealing with in the mail, you're trying to see a path forward. This is that time frame where soon, again, could be closer to the end of the month, the middle to the end, we can say, that second later half of February, where something opens up. Where a path opens up, an opportunity opens up for you to take advantage of it and help push that situation forward. Again, speaking of the Ace of Swords, pushing the situation in your favor into a mode of victory and triumph. Now, actually, let's start off. Let's move on to that. The Ace of Swords energy here. Now that we spoke about the sun, in a modern sense, the swords. Like when I say modern, I mean a lot of tarot, TikTok, YouTube people, and that's me too. But I get it. But they view the swords as being connected to the suit of the air, like the element of the air, rather. The air signs, you could say, in astrology. And while that certainly is one way to interpret it, historically, like in the traditional tarot, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck being the most popular, that many other decks are based off of, again, Arthur Edward Waite, who created, that was his brainchild kind of thing, who created that deck, he did not link the cards to astrology. That was, or air signs, you could say, to the swords. That was more of a hermetic thing, like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, or Eliphas, how do you say his name? Eliphas Levi. That those kind of people did do that. Arthur Edward Waite was not a fan of doing that. And so instead, the sword was not representative of the air. He used clouds to depict that. But the sword was emblematic of battle because the sword is functionally, in terms of functional symbolism, it is a battle weapon. It cuts through the truth of things. There's no denying the truth of what has been cut, essentially, at a functional level. So the Ace of Swords, that's why it gets in traditional tarot, a crown that is sitting above it, because it's about conquering something. It's about conquering a battle, conquering an obstacle, being triumphant and being victorious. But also, it is a new aspect that shows up in your life, which we have the sun giving the new revelation, and that new thing that comes in to assist you in that battle, whatever it is for you, whatever it is that helps you to gain your victory, shows up in a victorious way that takes the battle that you were in and makes you the dominant one over top of the difficulty. Which is a technical kind of way, or a long drawn out way of saying something is going to show up for you in the month of February that opens up a path, and your previous battles will get resolved because of that new path that opens up. That's a much easier way to say it. You know what I mean? Now, the Two of Pentacles is here. I want to mention, again, historically, a lot of people don't understand the concept of this card. They think of it in a modern sense because it's usually a picture of a person balancing on one foot. Or in traditional tarot, they're juggling some money. But it's fantastic when you look at the historical aspect of the Two of Pentacles, often linked to ecstasy. Let me say that again. A card usually associated with balancing out money is actually connected to ecstasy and the feeling that someone gets when they do come to that point of conquering, when they do come to that point of victory, and they just feel so, what's the word, jubilant, so ecstatic in their ecstasy, that they have a reason to celebrate. And I also want to say that because this is a card about balancing out money to some degree, how was it that people used to balance money back in the day? It was through things like ledgers on paper, written communications that you would receive. And so the Two of Pentacles is also a card of a potential for that situation that you're waiting on, that new path or opportunity that comes in, to come in the form of writing. For some of you, it could be communication that comes in an email. Others of you, it could be, a settlement offer, a contract that you're signing, the paperwork for a course that you're trying to get set up with. You see what I'm saying? It's heavy on, actually, Arthur Edward Waite described it specifically as words of written confirmation. Words in writing was the Two of Pentacles energy. Now, I want to talk about these last two cards here, because these are a really interesting set to have on the outside of the reading. It is the Knight of Swords in the reversal and the Seven of Pentacles. Let me just flip them around for you so you can see the depiction of them. The Seven of Pentacles historically is a card that is connected to what they call the money tree. Like in the original tarot, it's a picture of a bush that's growing money. In the reversal, it can have a tendency for someone to feel like at one point they didn't get enough harvest, and harvest is the equivalent metaphorically of money or value. They put a lot of effort into something and they may not have gotten a lot of value. And I think perhaps this was in the past for you. This could be why there was a battle. You felt like in some degree you didn't have enough money. Maybe your job wasn't giving you enough money, or maybe in some kind of a negotiation, you ended up, with the shit end of the stick of the contract, or you saw that there was something that wasn't living up to what you were hoping. And that perhaps is what's getting resolved and what you're having victory over, that previous circumstance. And I want to say that specifically when the Seven of Pentacles is in the reversal, it has to do with money lending. Like it could have been for some of you, the fact that you had to take out a loan or a credit card, or you were hoping to get a certain amount, right? Say you were trying to get a loan for a mortgage, or a certain amount of a loan to help with your travel plans, or whatever it is that you needed that credit card for, maybe student debt. And for some reason it didn't come up to the amount that you were hoping for. This could very well be where all of a sudden that written communication comes in the month of February that says, hey, that thing that you were dealing with that was a battle, well, we've got a new path open up for you. With that Seven of Pentacles is an interesting one to get in the reversal. And then we have that Knight of Swords dynamic as well. This is interesting because it's got a two-sided meaning to it in the reversal. Sometimes it can mean incapability, and other times it can mean extravagance. So for some of you, it's connected to the fact that the battle in the past that you had to go through with money, it left you feeling incapable. You knew that you did not have enough money. Perhaps you weren't able to get other bills dealt with because you had this situation going on, right? So in one area, you really did feel incapable of proceeding forward because you didn't have the money that you need, or you didn't have the paperwork or the contract. Something was missing. But for others of you, because it's the card of extravagance, it could have been that you got yourself into a predicament because you spent too much money. You were a little bit more extravagant with your previous money than you could have been. Perhaps you got a credit card or loaned something in the past and you had to catch up on it. And instead of spending wisely, you might have overspent and got a little extravagant. But you know what? I want you to understand, money is an energetic force in the universe for you to use. Just because you use it in a certain way that you might think is not as favorable does not mean that you have done some terrible thing. You're not wholly irresponsible forever and ever, amen, and branded as a terrible person who can't deal with money, right? The way that we spend money is for a moment, it's for an instant, it's an energetic circumstance at that time. And oftentimes, even the situations where we do find ourselves in a pickle were meant to happen, and a new path was meant to open up in that realm anyways, Well, a lot of people get really exhausted at the burnout that they feel over debt, over credit scores, over just trying to survive, and get paycheck to paycheck. So we all do feel like this. Unless you're a trust fund baby or a Nepo baby and you've never experienced that, I'd say most of us do. Most of us have that experience of thinking, do we borrow from Peter to pay Paul, or should we choose between a fancy shampoo bottle and the meal that we're going to eat next week? It doesn't make you the worst person in the world. It doesn't make you a failure at this. And it also doesn't mean it's going to stay like that forever. It's not always going to be from paycheck to paycheck, borrow from Peter to pay Paul forever. But as humans, we absolutely end up in a scarcity mind frame a lot of the times because of how stressful life can be financially. And that's why I want to do these kind of readings. Not just to sit here and say, this and that is going to happen, but to do these readings, it allows you for even a moment to take a breath and say, okay, there is a chance that it could be okay. Keep pushing forward. Because when you do keep pushing forward, inevitably something's always got to give. Whether you're a person who believes in spirituality or God or the Holy Spirit, the divine feminine, or whether you just believe in science and cause and effect, in the rules of both of those, even in the rules of cause and effect, if you keep going forward, eventually something's got to give. Right? So that's what we need to kind of put forward in this. And then if you do understand the tarot way of looking at it, and we look at the interpretation, then yeah, it does say that path in that respect is opening up here for you in the month of February, and it's likely to come in the format of written communication. So I'm going to leave you guys off with that. I want you guys to enjoy that path and that triumphant victory that you get. And I want you to know that whatever loans or difficulties or battles that have happened in the past, it doesn't define you. It doesn't mean it's going to be forever. And if you are interested, I do have another financial reading that I'm going to do for the month of February, but I'm going to do that over on TikTok, where I break down every single week, the first week of February, the second week of February. And that way, Leos, I can see exactly which week it is that, money comes in a little bit better, or kind of, again, look into the entertainment of that. But if you're not interested in any more of those kind of readings, you can always just hang out. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I'm really easy to find. I just chat about normal life because I'm a whole ass human. I am the only Lenny D with green hair in her profile picture, so I'm very easy to find. And if you ever want a private reading, I have same day readings. They're $20 for any 2 tarot questions. And yeah, you can always check out my link in my bio for that kind of information. By same day, by the way, I mean the same day that you order the reading is also the same day that I send you back the video recording of all of the cards that you got to help show you what's going on. So I will talk to you later and leave it off like that, Leos. Enjoy. Thank you very much for joining me, and ciao for now.